take responsibility and stay safe. See you again next week, same time.
Oshun Osogbo Festival is a traditional celebration that is believed to be 600 years old, practiced in Nigeria's southwestern state of Oshun. The two-week festival is considered to be the biggest annual traditional religious event of the Yoruba people. It attracts thousands of worshippers and spectators, not just from Nigeria, but from all over the world.
Ìránṣẹ́ Olódùmarè lọ́sùn láti gbà wáṣẹ̀ nínú gbogbo àwọn arúmọlẹ̀ tí Olódùmarè rán wáyé Ọ̀ṣun Òṣogbo nìkan lóbìnrin tí ń bẹ láàrin wọn tí ó sì sẹ́nìkan tó lè yẹ nídìí kúrò ńbẹ̀.
Ọ̀ṣun jẹ́ òòṣà tí gbogbo ayé mọ̀ tó jẹ́ gbajúgbajà nínú àwọn arúmọlẹ̀ tí wọ́n wà ní àgbáyé.
The Oshun Osogbo Festival was also created to re-establish the mystic bonds between the goddess and the people of the town.
Ní 1981-82 mo bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ru igbá Ọ̀ṣun Òṣogbo. Ó sì ti wà ní àdéhùn wípé tó bá ti mú ọba nídìílé ọba tó bá wà lórí àpèrè àwọn ọmọbìnrin ibẹ̀ òní wọ́n máa bá wọn ru igbá Ọ̀ṣun.
Historically, an ancestral occurrence led to the celebration of this festival. Once upon a time, a group of migrating people who were led by a great hunter called Olutimehi settled on the bank of Oshun River to save themselves from farming. At the riverside, Oshun the goddess appeared from the water in front of Olutimehi and requested him to lead the people to a special place, which is present-day Oshogbo town.
This is the Oshun River. This is where the real action takes place. People come here for prayer.
The goddess promised to protect all the group and bring them prosperity in return for an annual sacrifice to her.
Ibi tí Ọ̀ṣun wà ń bẹ́ẹ̀ dòní kò sí kúrò láàyè rẹ̀ o. Òun ṣe òòṣà tẹ́nìkankan lè gbé lọ. Òun ṣe igi kì í sọ̀pẹ̀, kì í sòkúta. Kò dẹ̀ ń ṣe tẹ́nìkan máa ń fojú rí àfẹn tó bá fẹ́ farahàn. Ọ̀ṣun Òṣogbo ń bẹ láàyè rẹ̀ kò sí ìdíkù ń bẹ o.
Today, the annual sacrifice to the Oshun River goddess is what is still celebrated as the Oshun Osogbo Festival.
À ṣètò bí igbá ó ṣe jáde láti mójútó igbá, láti mú arúgbá lọ sódò àti gbogbo àwọn ètùtù tó bá yẹ àti láti mú arúgbá padà wá sílé láyọ̀ àtàlàáfíà.
7 days to our festival. This water is more potent.
Oshun Osogbo Festival is accompanied by unique drumming.
Drumming is so essential and important in anything we do in Yoruba land.
Dancing, elaborate costumes, recitation of praise poetry, and so on. Apart from the deep spiritual aspect attached to the festival by adherents of the Oshun deity, it is also robustly rich in culture.
It's not as if government is not aware that there's poverty in the land, but things are being done.
Federal Executive Council approves policy on poverty reduction.
House of Reps passes for second reading constitutional amendment bill seeking creation of special seats for women.
We are calling on our youth not to allow the politicians to use them for such evil action.
Traditional rulers call for the return of peace and security.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we continue our conversation on stemming the tide of insecurity in Nigeria.
Yesterday, guests on Good Morning Nigeria raised a lot of issues concerning the insecurity level in the country, and they brought up several ideas towards addressing insecurity. One of the points raised was the establishment of a National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons to tackle the proliferation of firearms and weapons in the country. Nigeria is said to have 70% of over 10 million illegal weapons in circulation in the West African sub-region.
That's right, Kiriam. Now, our guest also suggested building capacities of Nigeria's security operatives through a comprehensive security sector reform. For instance, Honorable Abdul Razak Namdas, who is chairman of the House of Reps Committee on the Army, expressed worry over the way criminals are brazenly attacking public institutions, with police stations being their main targets, softly that is to say, and then suggesting the need to beef up the country's border security.
Security consultant and First Commander Multinational Joint Task Force General John Tenlong, alongside the Director General, Nigerian Army Resource Center, Major General Garba Wahab, called for good governance, strengthening of the nation's security architecture, and frowned against the misuse of the social media.
Now, however, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, who is in charge of the Department of Research and Planning, Moses Jitobo, was of the opinion that although the Nigerian police was facing serious challenges, the force was not, and is not, overwhelmed.
Well, some Nigerians may not agree with that because there have been calls in some quarters, especially the National Assembly and even President Muhammadu Buhari, seeking foreign assistance in tackling insecurity in the country. Nigerians who reacted via NTA Good Morning Nigeria Twitter handle also agreed with comments from the guests and called for massive recruitment of security personnel, intensive training, and an improved welfare package, among others, as necessary prolonged approaches to stemming the tide of insecurity in the country.
Well, Kirian, in terms of having more personnel recruited into the security forces, the guests also underline the fact that there has to be more efficient and effective utilization of the current staffing positions of the security operatives, particularly the police, tens of thousands of whom are currently engaged in private policing duties through the so-called VIP protection, and that if you deploy those personnel to various parts of the country, that could on its own, on the face of it, serve as a deterrence.
And, you know, we've had in the past, you know, whenever we have a new IGP, what you hear is that those personnel could be withdrawn, but nothing happens after that.
Unfortunately, that's exactly what the guests were also referring to, that there has to be now compliance with such directives. It could be in a phased manner as they suggested. But it was also a point made by the guests that citizen education on security matters is now imperative, that Nigerians have to be more security conscious, and that they also have to learn to report to the authorities. The DIG of the police in charge of research and department did say that amongst the reforms going on now in the police force is to overcome the lack of trust that citizens do not have in the police. That's to say, you report criminal activities or potential criminal activities, and then the criminals turn around because you were betrayed by those to whom you reported.
Exactly, and come after you.
That's right. That the police.
What happened to one of the one lady, who worked at the State House sometime last year, who reported some, hoodlums in her area, and what happened was that they went ahead and hacked her down and killed her. Because, of course, they got a report from the police that she was the person that actually reported them. That was the news that we had,
All right, and of course, the guests also underscored the fact that there appears to be, right now, no national consensus on the current security situation in the country. What are the causative factors? How do we deal with the issues at the root of it? But in terms of the many examples of security challenges that we have in the country, we also saw Governor Zulum of Borno State. He was in the news describing the security situation in his state, saying that it was pathetic. This was when he paid a visit to President Muhammadu Buhari to brief him on developments in that part of the country. The governor of Niger State as well has also lamented the invasion of his state and the fact that, according to him, Boko Haram is flying the flag in one of the local government areas.
And meanwhile, security has been beefed up at the border between Rivers and Abia states. And up north, Governor Nasir El-Rufai says no going back on the no ransom and no negotiation policy as bandits release new video of Kaduna abducted students. These attacks, especially the last one at an IGP camp in Benue State, which left 7 people dead, makes one wonder, when can all these come to an end?
Well, Kirian, that's why we, of course, continue the conversation today, because every Nigerian virtually now is affected. And the view is that this cannot just go on. Our guests later on will speak to these issues and more. On that note, we'd like to welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Kingsley Osadolo, thanking you for tuning in.
And I am Kirian Umar, also joining Kingsley to welcome you to this particular edition of the program. We're broadcasting live on the network service of the NTA. And as usual, we have our complimentary segments, newspaper review, business news, and others. For now, let's join Musbao Dan Wahab for the news highlights for today's Good Morning Nigeria. Hello, Musbao.
Hello, Kieran and Kingsley. Very good morning. Nigerians took a break away from the security challenge, and we saw quality game in the Champions League last night. Right.
There's no question about that. I mean, before we came on air, we were all in the studios here reviewing the match. It was a great one, but again, sometimes miscalculation on the part of PSG led to the equalizer.
Exactly.
De Bruyne is a creative.
Luck for Man City yesterday to get that equalizer.
That's right. But the second goal was
classic.
It was classic.
Yeah,
your thoughts?
Indeed, it was. Let's see how Man City are going to sail it at the Etihad Stadium. All right, let's move on to the news of the day. A draft national policy on poverty reduction with growth strategy has been approved by Federal Executive Council. This is in furtherance of efforts by the Buhari presidency at lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years. The special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, announced this while briefing journalists after the council's meeting.
Government is not aware that there's poverty in the land, but things are being done. And one of it is this national poverty reduction with growth strategy.
And similarly, the Federal Executive Council has approved the augmentation of contract for the procurement of poultry in favor of states affected by crisis in 2019. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Umar Farouk, who announced these, also said her ministry is prepared to respond most appropriately to the humanitarian crisis arising from the renewed attacks by insurgents and other criminal elements in parts of the country.
For Borno, Plateau, Yobe and Zamfara states that were affected by conflict in 2019.
Away from the State House, Nigeria and some other West African countries were appreciated by the Sierra Leonean government as the country marked its 60th independence anniversary at a series of events in the capital city of Freetown. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports that the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, was proud of the achievements recorded by Sierra Leone over the years.
Reaffirm my country's commitment to the pursuit and promotion of common African agenda through these and other multilateral institutions, including our leadership of the C10 and other processes.
All of what Sierra Leone has been through in the past years, 11 years of civil war, and it has emerged from that terrible experience much stronger, united country, and developing every day in, economically, socially.
Back in Nigeria, the chairman Imo State Community Policing Committee, Eze Emmanuel Okeke, is stressing the need for synergy among stakeholders towards achieving the return of peace and security in the state and other troubled areas in the country. He made this known at a meeting of traditional rulers held in Owerri, Imo State capital.
For such evil action, you should understand that every payment done will be placed by the government with funds that will be used for other purposes.
The House of Representatives has passed for second reading a constitutional amendment bill seeking creation of special seat for women. The bill, sponsored by the House Deputy Chief Whip Nkiruka Onyejocha and 85 others, would enable creation of additional special seats for women in the National Assembly and State Houses of Assembly. The constituencies, when created, will be contested by women only to serve as a temporary measure to promote women's representation.
It's an opportunity for us to be on the positive side of history.
Now, the oscillation in the number of COVID-19 infection continues as the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has confirmed 81 new cases of COVID-19 in the country. Lagos State tops the list of new infections with 26, followed by Enugu State with 13. Ogun recorded 8 cases, Rivers and Kano have 6 each, while Kaduna and Plateau States each recorded 5. Alta and FCT recorded 3 new cases each, while Edo recorded 2 new cases. With these developments, Nigeria now has 164,993 confirmed cases of COVID-19, out of which 155,021 patients were treated and discharged, while 2,063 deaths have been recorded. That's it on the news this morning. The program will continue with Kingsley and Kieran in just a moment.
Hooray! Another year older, and our amiable chief keeps getting younger, wiser, stronger, bigger, and better. Turning 68 surely looks good on our quintessential and amazing personality, business mogul and philanthropist per excellence of our time, Chief Michael Adenuga, Executive Chairman, Global Company. Today indeed marks another milestone in the remarkable journey of your life, of which the Nigerian Television Authority, the largest TV network in Africa, can be proud of. Our partnership with you over the past many years is invaluable to us, even more than the most precious stones. It is our fervent prayers and wish that this special day marks the beginning of another exciting chapter in your life and brings you all that your heart desires. Happy birthday, sir, in good health and prosperity, and many happy returns of the day. Signed, Management, NTA.
Nigeria joins the rest of the world in going digital. This means Nigeria is moving from analog terrestrial TV broadcasting to digital. Now, digital broadcasting gives you clearer pictures, crystal clear sound, and a chance for more channels and more shows to watch. Digital TV is a whole new experience for you and a rich harvest of digital development for the nation. Come aboard, Nigeria going digital.
Coming to Lagos now.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
When times are tough, we know that as a mother, one thing you should never compromise on is your family's oral health, because they deserve the best. Oral-B, all-round protection. It creates value. It protects your mouth from harmful bacteria, and also protects you against tooth holes and gum problems which can lead to tooth loss. It strengthens your family's teeth and gives them all-round protection. So remember, protect their future. Oral-B will help their stronger teeth in just 1 week.
Guess what?
What?
I scored a hat trick today.
Cool!
Wow!
And how did you celebrate?
Just do your hands like this.
And hold your nose like this.
Body odor is caused by germs. That's why you need the new improved Dettol Cool Soap, which protects against 99.9% odor-causing germs with an extra burst of menthol freshness. Dettol, be 100% sure.
It's the dawn of a new era on NTA's flagship program, the Sports Parliament, revitalized with lots of varieties, including feedback responses from viewers. Sports Parliament, the weekly sports show that exposes all the intrigues in the Nigerian sports sector and projects an agenda on the way forward for Nigerian sports. On NTA every Thursday at 10:30 p.m., running for 1 whole hour, discussing sports. The parliamentarians are more committed than ever to enlighten the viewers as the Sports Parliament takes it to a whole new level on the floor of the House. Keep a date with the Sports Parliament as motions are moved every Thursday on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, with his gavel to harmonize sports resolutions. The House have it.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. It's time for business news. Let's join our correspondent, Kunle Adeyeye, for details in that segment.
Director General of the Debt Management Office, Patience Uniha, emphasized that part of the fiscal concerns for government is poor debt service to revenue ratio and stressed the need for all tiers of government to align for better debt management in the country. At a virtual workshop, Uniha said the DMO, as one of the implementing agencies in the state's Fiscal Transparency, Accountability and Sustainability Program, it is presenting the guidelines for the legal framework for state debt management operations to the 36 states of the Federation.
What is the process for borrowing? Okay. And what is the limit? So at the center, there's the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Then there are some provisions in the DMO Act as well at the center. So what this is doing is telling them the minimum content. So there should be process, there should be an institution. Where should it start from? How should it go? So that's what this law is doing, as in the content.
At the last assessment, 24 states met the eligibility criteria to benefit from the state's Fiscal Transparency, Accountability and Sustainability Program $750 million grant from the World Bank. She said it is important to get the remaining states on board for national economic interests. And to the details of Wednesday's tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
Well, thank you, Kunle, for that report. And next on Good Morning Nigeria, is a review of today's national dailies.
Toby, pleasure to have you with us this morning. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Kinsley. Good morning. Good morning, Kyria. Good morning, Nigeria.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, let's look at the Punch newspaper. Let's begin with the Punch newspaper. The Punch, above the name flag of the Punch newspaper, we have Nigeria, 6 others account for 65% global gas flaring. That's according to the World Bank. It's on page 30. Senate demands explanation on 7.5 billion naira withdrawals from NSA, Ahmed. It's on page 25. Federal government, World Bank meet over MBS confusing employment statistics. That's on page 11. Then we have NAVDAC, NEC, NASHCOMSAT, others opt for self-funding. Cash crunch, NNPC writes governors. That's the lead story. NNPC writes governors, bloated subsidy eats up revenue. 2 riders to that. Corporation projects zero allocations for April, May, 12.9 billion naira for June. State governments intensify IGI drive, float industries, new airlines. The photo story there is that of Lislaine Kaduna University student buried, and colleagues narrate night of horror. EFCC quizzes ex-correctional service boss for alleged procurement fraud. That's on page 11. Reps probe Jonathan's 500 million naira safe school project over Chibok abductions. The story is on page 18. Also on page 18, we have, again, herdsmen strike in Benue, kill couple returning from farm. Oshun Osogbo chairs panel to address worsening poverty. It's on page 25. FCT command pledges protection, confirms 5 suspected robbers lynched. It's on page 11. Adamawa floats 100 billion naira bond for agri value chain. The story can be found on page 2 of the Punch newspaper.
Okay, let's also take a look at the front page of the Nation newspaper, beginning with the lead story. Nigeria can't afford another civil war, Osogbo warns, with 2 riders, Oni and Sultan, caution against secession calls. Abaribe, that's the senator, government creating room for disintegration. Now, there's a quote there on the front page of the paper that's taken from Vice President Osogbo's admonition. It says, everyone who thinks they have some monies stored up somewhere will eventually run out of money. Everyone who thinks they can go and hide somewhere won't find even a place to hide. In the end, everyone will suffer. Insecurity will end soon, says Obasanjo. That's on page 4. And the photograph there on the front page shows the mourners at the funeral service for Miss Johanna at the Ekwa Church in Kaduna. Miss Johanna was one of the 5 students who have been found dead after they were kidnapped from the Greenfield University in Kaduna. The others are still in the custody of the kidnappers and bandits. The headline there says, bandits stopped deal I had with my girl, says dad of slain student. Gunmen hit more police assets in attacks. 2 riders, 2 policemen killed, and hotelier and wife murdered. And lastly, at the foot of the front page, NDLEA seizes drugs worth 80 billion naira in 100 days. Humanitarian crisis overwhelms Benue. That's on page 26. Bayo.
Thank you, Kinsley. Let's start with the sad story of Dorothy Johanna. Is one of the abducted Greenfield University students who was murdered in cold blood. You recall that 5 of them have been shot point blank by their abductors. The father, Johanna Mek, said he's bidding his daughter farewell with pains. When the kidnappers called, he said he was too angry to speak with them. So they spoke with his wife, and they demanded 800 million. And the wife told them, we can't raise such money. They told her, go tell Governor El Rufai and the school management to give us the money. The mother says that her joy is that she had the opportunity to speak to her daughter while she was with the captors, and he told her, hold on unto your God. Sadly, that was the last time they were to speak. Meanwhile, two of the three students that were kidnapped at the Federal University of Agriculture, Makurdi, has also been released. They were kidnapped on Saturday, and two of them were released on Wednesday. The police says that they are investigating, and nothing so far has been said about the third. Talking about the warning, girls, Kingsley read from the Vice President. Vice President Yemi Oshibajo, while addressing a delegation from Anambra State comprising APC leaders from that part of the country, said, we cannot afford a war in this country. It is time that the elite should speak out and speak the truth to the forces of division and preserve the unity of our country. He says, we cannot afford a war in this country. It is the political elite that will determine what will take place. If we keep quiet and hope things will be normal, we may be wrong. We may find ourselves heading for something worse. If the elite don't speak up, if we don't see anything wrong in goings on, if we allow it to continue to slide, we will endanger ourselves. So that is the warning coming from there. But meanwhile, Sheikh Dairu Bauchi has called on the federal government to end insecurity, stressing that nobody is safe anymore. The octogenarian Islamic cleric spoke while receiving a delegation of Christians led by the former Minister of Sport, Solomon Dalong, who paid him a visit. Sheikh Dahiru Bauchi stressed that we expect the federal, the state, and local government to get us out of this problem because nobody is safe. People cannot go to farm for fear of being killed. Governments must do the needful to protect its citizens, both Muslims and Christians, for criminality elements who are trying to dominate. Former Minister Dalong said they paid a homage to the cleric to join him in breaking the fast and seek him to pray for Nigeria. Meanwhile, Governor Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State has imposed curfew on the border axis of Ebonyi from 8 p.m. to 6 p.m. He has also given security agencies 72 hours to bring to book bandits who over last weekend killed a policeman, 2 soldiers, and a civilian. And he says hoodlums hide under the umbrella of IPOB to carry out their evil attacks. Governor Umahi stressed, without standing for IPOB or its security network, criminality is criminality. He directed a crackdown on all criminals. He also lamented a rampantness of fake news in Ebonyi. The peddlers of fake news, he says, will be tracked down and prosecuted. He cited an example that there was an alarm in Abakaliki that herders are coming to attack, and there was stampede all over the city. People were withdrawing their children from school, and there was helter-skelter all over the place. And he says that that will not be allowed to continue. Meanwhile, in Ogun State, former President Olusegun Obasanjo joined governors of Oyo and Ogun State at a Baptist convention. And former President Obasanjo says the current insecurity will not consume Nigeria. He joined Governor Abiodun Makinde of Oyo State at the 108th ceremony of the Nigerian Baptist Convention. Governor Abiodun says, if Nigerians follow the instructions of God in all their living doings, things will be easier for the country, and we will not find ourselves in the current predicament. Governor Makinde of Ogun State urged the retiring Reverend Samson Ayokunle to continue to lead prayers for Nigeria and the leaders. But Chief Olusegun Obasanjo says he is an incurable optimist about Nigeria. He likened Nigeria to the scrotural sack of a ram, dangling back and forth, but it will never fall off. He stressed there will be light at the end of the tunnel.
It's a long tunnel, by the way, Kieran.
Yes.
Bayo. Makinde is governor of Oyo State.
Yes.
And Dapo Abiodun is governor of Ogun State.
Did I mix them up?
Yes, you do, but that's all right. Just by the way, I was just wondering. Perhaps those of us who are not petroleum experts will wonder, because the lead story of the Punch that Kirian read says cash crunch, NNPC rights governance, bloated subsidy eats up revenue. That's subsidy on imported fuel. Okay, the contract for the rehabilitation of Port Harcourt refinery has been signed and awarded. Now, what about the other 3 refineries? I want to ask this question. Sometime in the past, we used to hear that, okay, the refineries were functioning at X percentage installed capacity, not up to 100, sometimes 70, 50, 40, 30. Are we saying now that engineers in NNPC cannot ensure that those refineries are at least producing something for the domestic market? Kira, you got my puzzle. I remember I was at the Kaduna refinery in 2013, and the Kaduna refinery was working. And it was a function of Nigerian engineers who ensured that the Kaduna refinery was working. So what are they doing? Are we just waiting until they say privatize or sell off, or you award another contract that might generate a great deal of controversy? Because you heard the controversy that the $1.2 billion generated over the total rehabilitation of the... What is it that is being done? Because each time they release their statements of account or release their numbers, you hear how much is being spent on refineries that are producing virtually nothing. And in the meantime, we keep grumbling that we are spending so much on a subsidy on imported petrol.
The thing is that we have not heard from NNPC how much the local refineries are contributing to the overall quantum of petrol that we use in this country. But I can assure you that Nigeria has very well qualified engineers in all strata of engineering profession. That if there's anything left in any of those refineries, Nigerian engineers can make good use of what is left. But what we don't know is that to what extent, can those refineries work? Are there any department or any part of the refinery that is concerned with the refining that are still working? Because, like Christy said, we've never had any information on the quantum of fuel being gotten from the local refineries. Everything we hear is what is being imported and subsidy involved, and all of that. So it's, for me, I don't know. It's a big puzzle, and I don't know.
Well, it's very sad. We have 3 refineries and 2 petrochemical refineries, making 5. Unfortunately, over the years, instead of doing the turning around maintenance, there has been some embedded corruption. You find some persons being awarded contract, but the turnaround maintenance is not done as expected. The difference with what has been done this time around with the Port Harcourt refinery is that they now have an external body that is coming. I think it is an Italian base that is coming now to come and do this kind of refurbishing of the refinery, and it will not be the past turnaround maintenance that turned out to be just turning around the monies meant for upgrading the refinery. There's no gainsaying the fact that we have competent Nigerians who are engineers within the system, but they have been hamstringed from handling the refinery the way it ought to be. But the dilemma...
When you say they are hamstrung, who is the cause of that? I mean, that's the point.
It's a factor of management. It's
precisely.
It's a factor of management.
As I said, I'm not a petroleum engineer, nor am I a mechanical engineer or otherwise. I'm saying that a refinery is a complex.
Yes.
So certain portions of it could be working, and certain portions, if they are down, and they turn around, it's usually to say you want to shut down and then do an overhaul. But you are spending money just keeping the refinery, you are paying the workers, and at the end of the day, what is the output from what you are putting in?
That is the question.
And we cannot be complaining that, subsidy is bloated, subsidy is bloated. I don't know.
There's this critical issue that Kingsley raised about the revenue, that NNPC is now saying they cannot account for the revenue. There is a puzzle here. The GMD has said upon resumption that the production level, the cost was about $30 per barrel. And he was trying to see how they can work on that and bring it to $10 per barrel. If the production cost is about $30 to $35 per barrel, and we are selling it in the world market at $65 per barrel, isn't there already a margin What happens when you bring it out? Is it Nigerians now who are paying for the inbuilt cost? Because apparently, when you sell it in the world market at $65 and you bring it back and you are selling the petrol at 165 naira at the pump price, it is Nigerians who are paying for that inbuilt cost.
I'm sure that this is something that is going to go on. Just for one's own enlightenment, but I'm just, what you're talking about has to do with crude oil production.
Yes.
I'm talking, that's upstream. I'm talking about downstream. Which is refining.
Okay.
It's the refining issue that is hazy. Those refineries abroad from where we are getting our refined petroleum products, how are they kept running?
Well, I'm talking about the revenue now that the NMPC is talking about now.
That's right. And when you talk about refineries, there are refineries in America for that have been there for the past 60 years and they're still functional. So I wonder what the magic they are doing there. Whatever is the case, we have known that locally here our refineries are not effective. They're not functioning properly.
I understand Ghana has a refinery built in 1956.
Exactly, and it's still functional. Yeah. Okay, Bayo. We have to call it today here on this segment. We want to thank you for your contribution on this segment. Now, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We are going to take a short break now. When we return, we'll, of course, be discussing stemming the tide of insecurity in Nigeria. Do stay with us.
Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
At the first sign of pain, you need a solution that you can trust to provide effective relief and is gentle on the stomach. Try Panadol Caplets for relief from headaches, body aches, and fever. With Panadol's Optizorb formula, the tablet gently breaks down in the stomach, quickly absorbs, and starts providing pain relief in 15 minutes. For fast and effective pain relief that you can trust, try Panadol Caplets. This has been Medifact for Panadol.
Dear customer, link your Airtel number to your national identification number today. Here are easy ways you can do it. Dial *121*1# on your Airtel line and follow the prompts on the screen. Type in your 11-digit government-approved NIN number. You will receive a confirmation message to confirm your entry. You can also visit www.airtel.com.ng/NIN to link your phone number to your NIN. If you do not know your NIN, simply dial *346# to get it. No stress, no wahala.
Airtel, the smartphone network. Kehinde suffers from indigestion. His twin Taiyi suffers from heartburn. Sometimes it's the other way around, or both. That's why they use Gaviscon Double Action. It soothes within 3 minutes and lasts for up to 4 hours. For double relief from heartburn and indigestion, Gaviscon Double Action.
What's inside this beautiful house? Inside, there is a very beautiful family. And in this family, there is a lot of love. And inside this love, there's Alpenliebe. And in the center of Alpenliebe, there is a feeling made with rich milk and creamy caramel. Alpenliebe, the milk-filled candy that warms your heart with love. Alpenliebe, bring hearts closer. Now also available in stick pack.
Nigeria will join body with every other country for this world to enter that battle what they call digital broadcasting. This digital broadcasting is better pass those time when we say when they go outside go to Tonton TV and not be that one. You go sit down for your comfort now. You go watch better. The TV go clear way. The people with this side go clear way. The sound man go come out well. If channel say go increase the local TV waiting for the Obodo Nigeria side go come out face where come clear well. My people, Nigeria. They enter digital.
Nigeria going digital. Nigeria going digital.
Coming to Lagos now.
Life is a game. We are cool. We are trendy. Energy moves us. Sports is our game, our oxygen. Because with the round leather, we ball. We hustle. All over the land, north and south, we are united in the positive glory. We are encapsulated by Hi-Fil. We live for the game. It's game time. Showing on NTA Network.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. And to begin the second part of our conversation on the subject matter, stemming the tide of insecurity in Nigeria, here is a summary of the discussion we had yesterday as packaged by Joseph Oshun.
You see police parading criminals with so many arms, and then we want to know these arms, where are they at the moment? We also want to know, look at customs. They will tell you at the border, we have cache of arms coming from other countries, they display it. Now we want to know, where are they? So because let it not get back to the hands of the criminals. And then the federal government must work seriously to make sure that we give up our borders security.
Even at the community level, there are ways of punishing criminals. But it appears they have taken over the public space, and now they overrun police stations at ease and hit and go back. And then the public gets so excited about it that they start flashing these things on social media as if it's some good news. I think the Nigerian public must be more patriotic than what we're doing now.
We need to realize that security is not cheap. To go technological, as General Temblong has suggested, we must be ready to pay for it, and we must encourage our citizens. We must give security awareness and education to everybody.
The IG has directed that even all the men in the state headquarters and in the federal headquarters should be downsized. So that we need more men, more boots on the streets, patrolling, because we have come up with a robust way of a patrol where we want to employ every known part of patrolling that has been discarded. That's foot patrol, vehicular patrol, even bicycle patrol. So that we're trying to create this awareness of visibility policing, because there is assurance and there is this sense of security when you see a policeman.
All right, many thanks, Joseph Oshun, there for the excerpts from part one of our conversation, which took place yesterday, Wednesday. We have guests with us here in the studios now to further elaborate on matters arising and also get their own perspectives on what needs to be done to arrest the current level of insecurity in the country. We have Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu. He's retired. He's a security and defense consultant and an expert in the Safe School Declaration. Group Captain Sadiq, delighted to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, viewers.
All right. Also here with us in the studios is a member of the House of Representatives, Honorable Bamidele Salami. Honorable Salami, delighted to have you with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And of course, Dr. Joseph Osogbo, Associate Research Professor, Head Research and Policy Analysis, Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution, is here with us this morning. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning.
And of course, Habila Joshak is a retired Deputy Inspector General Operations of the Nigerian Police Force. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right, gentlemen, I'd like to have you join us. Let's begin with DIG Habila Joshak. DIG, I recall last year, on the heels of the NSAS protests, we had you as our guests, as we always get you from time to time when you oblige our request for you to participate in our conversation. One of the things that the nation witnessed during the NSAS protests, after it was hijacked by hoodlums, was attack on police stations, an attack on service personnel, some of whom were killed, in some parts of the country. And then, of course, those incidents died down. But in recent weeks, we have seen what has been happening, particularly in the southeast of the country. Anambra, all the states of the southeast, Anambra, Enugu, Imo, Abia, and Ebonyi. Service personnel are being attacked and killed. Service assets are also being attacked and razed. What, in your opinion, is playing out? I mean, we've had incidents of jailbreaks as well, even though there was an attempt in Kano, which was also stopped. What is happening? Are policemen now endangered? Should we be concerned? Or, as some analysts have indicated, is this a prelude to further weakening the security system, and then the hoodlums and bandits will then have a field day thereafter?
Well, thank you so much. What is playing out, as we've seen, could be summarized as some unpatriotic Nigerians that have already they've written a script, they've also rehearsed, and they're trying to play out. The motive not known. And I think also that these people have at the back of their mind the agenda for trying to destabilize this country. Because one of the things that you would do to take control of whatever situation you want to play out is going after the lead agency for the internal security and also creating fear and apprehension. So what is being played out is some individuals that are very unpatriotic, whatever motive it is, I think it's known to them. They have an agenda. They've also had their purpose for doing what they are doing, and they seem to have studied that, and that's why I'm saying they've written a script, and they've rehearsed, and they're now trying to play it out. Because when you dump in the morale of the internal security apparatus as the police, you are trying to create a situation of insecurity and dumping people's morale, and then take the laws into your hands by getting on straight on the police, those who are meant, to protect the citizen, taking up on them, trying to dampen their morale, just mow them down, and then go again to release criminals that have been brought in, and criminals that were supposed to process through the justice system. So I think what is being played out is a very serious one, and the earlier, the better, that we have to fish this individual, know their motive, and get them and catch them.
All right, thank you. Let's turn to Group Captain Sadiq Garba Shehu, who is Security and Defense Consultant and expert in Safe School Declaration. So, in discussing the issue of insecurity in Nigeria as it is presently, we also know that the spate of kidnapping in schools has also risen to a point where Nigerians are beginning to ask many questions as to why that has persisted, especially in the northwest part of the country. What, in your opinion, has gotten this insecurity in school to the level we are now? And as an expert, what do you think could be done presently to stem the tide of the kidnapping in our schools? We just read in the newspaper how one of the abducted ladies who was killed, was buried yesterday in Kaduna State, and of course there are many more students who are in the hands of hoodlums in many parts of this country. What can be done? What steps can be taken this time around to address the issue of kidnapping in the nation's schools?
Oh, thank you very much. First, schools are attracted to kidnappers because they typify what we call soft target. Usually, schools have very light security, so it is easy for a bandit or a kidnapper to walk in and carry the children, because generally our schools are not well guarded or not well secured, as opposed to what obtains in other countries. When the Chibok girls' kidnapping happened, because of the international uproar, there was immediate response, both from Nigeria and international community, through the Safe School Initiative. But unfortunately, as it happens in our national life, immediately an incident happens, there's a flurry of activities. But when it recedes with no media attention, then everybody went to sleep. The Safe School Initiative, started by Nigerian government, of course, with the support from the former Prime Minister of UK, Gordon Brown, who was the UN ambassador for education or something like that. Everybody went to sleep. Nothing was done until we had Dapchi, until we have too many now. Now, well, again, it seems obviously we have woken up from our slumber. 2 weeks ago, I think the Ministry of Finance organized a stakeholders meeting on how to see to finance the safe schools initiative and reinvigorate it. Apart from that, even after the safe school, when I think Mr. Gordon Brown saw that there was no any response from the national authorities, there have been other efforts. Like in 2019, Nigeria signed the Safe School Declaration, which was adopted at the Federal Executive Council meeting. By that Safe School Declaration, there are certain things that Nigeria as a country is supposed to do. There are certain guidelines. There are certain training that will be done to our security forces. There are even steps that schools, local government, local communities should take. Now, that again was another initiative different from the Safe School initiative. Again, here I have to underline this because there is tendency to start too many things at once without coordination. So maybe the government should look at, bringing together the SSI, which is basically driven by private sector, and then the Safe School Declaration, which Nigeria has committed itself to following. We hope, it's a whole of community approach. The Safe School Declaration and the guidelines is not only for the security agencies, school management bodies, PTAs, ministries of education, universal basic education boards, all have a role to play. Interestingly also, a document or a manual for training of security agencies on how they will protect schools, on how security agencies should behave around schools was promulgated. I think the document is been in the process of being validated by the Ministry of Education and Ministry. But in all these instances, you see so many moving parts. There is the need to bring these things together and align them. Again, like I said, it's a whole of community approach. It's not only government. Even as a parent, I always wonder how many parents take time now to go to school, especially those ones that pay a lot of money in private schools. Do you go and ask in the school, headmaster or principal, please, what is the security plan you have in your school? What happens if there is a kidnap? How does my child, nobody asks that. So these are things that everybody from the government to the community, there's a role to play. But most importantly, I want us to align all the national effort to protect our children, which I believe are our greatest assets that we have. If we don't have safety in our schools, especially in areas like in the north, where already, even without these problems, school enrollment is very low. We are trying to make, parents to send their children to school. This will be a great setback. And then the future of our children is the future of the country, because these are our future leaders. If we cannot secure them to have education, it is going to tell on us down the line many years to come. That's what I have to say on that.
All right. Thank you, Group Captain Sadiq. We'll bring you back into the conversation presently. Now, let's also get the views of Dr. Joseph Osogbo, who is of the Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution. Dr. Osogbo, what is your reading of what is happening in the country? The Northeast, we've been battling for over a decade now with terror, and of course Boko Haram typifies that, along with the breakaway faction. In the Northwest, we have seen the steady rise of bandits and kidnapping for ransom. That's also playing out in parts of North Central, where you also have high incidents of conflicts arising from the often antagonistic relationship these days between farmers and herders. In the Southwest, we also have such incidents in South-South, and then in the Southeast, you are having the separatist agitation. So, all of this, when you look at the end result that we've been harvesting in recent weeks, it's just a stream of blood everywhere around the country. What is your reading of what is happening? Before we start getting into, say, look, how do we begin to profile solutions from your point of view?
Thank you very much. And it is important to start on the premise that what we're experiencing now just didn't happen. Just didn't happen in the sense that the foundation upon which we've been building on, for a very long time, has been the foundation that is embedded, and with all the likelihood to breed violence. So, The point is that if you look at the anatomy of violence in Nigeria, you discover that there are a lot of structural fault line that tends to promote violence at every level in our society. And when you look at issues of injustice, when you look at issues of corruption, when you look at issue of poor service delivery, when you look at the issue of discrimination, the poor management of diversity, those are things that propel violence in any society. And like I tell a lot of people, it is not just about dropping money, in this whole thing, to correct some of these things. What we need as a quick run, basically, is more of intelligence and governance. And governance is not about contracting. Governance is more about deep thinking, creative and innovative thinking, and deploying the right action, to nip in the bud some of these things. So if you look at the violence that we are talking about, across the country, violence is liberalized. If you talk about cultism, if you talk about gangs group and all kinds of group, the high level of violence from Boko Haram to the so-called bandits that are associated with terrorism and all that. And note that these violence actors too, they have the international dimensions. And that is why you have, for example, transnational organized crimes and global organized terrorist groups and all that through selling their ideas and all that. So our Nigerian environment does provide, it's a very fragile, the fragility and the vulnerability of our environment, provides space, for this nature of violence to thrive. So, but what do we do, to curtail these things? Since 1999 till date, there have been a lot of socialization along the violence line, socialization of the Nigerian populace in different parts of the country in terms of from political violence to social violence and then cultural violence. So what do? We need the process of desocialization. It is not just all about putting the hard boots in the hard ground, to correct some of these things. Because even right within some of these institutions too, there are some violence, that takes place there. And when we say violence, at times it is not violence because you've seen blood, coming out from somebody. When you discriminate against somebody at the level of promotion, when you discriminate against somebody at the level of entrance into school, what you are perpetuating is violence against that individual. And you are likely to socialize that person to take a deviant attitude towards society. And you see all these things cutting across the nooks and crannies of the country. And if you look at economic violence, for example, the increasing gap between the rich and the poor is completely unacceptable. It is not acceptable in any society. And there is no society that experiences high gap, increased gap, between the rich and the poor. And then you expect some level of peace to reign in that society. So you begin to look at dealing with this thing. It has to take a holistic approach. It is not just about the security forces that are already getting tired. If you look at the population of Nigeria, vis-a-vis our armed forces and our security forces and all that, you know that this is the time for us to be more creative, more innovative on how to deal with the problems that we have. Politically, economically, socially. We just have to own up now and then come to agree to terms that, we want Nigeria as a country, to be one, and then change the way we used to do things before and begin to do things new, afresh. We need to breathe in fresh air, into the toxic environment and then change the landscape. Else, other actors are going to take advantage and will be experiencing some of the things we're experiencing now, if not worse. So we need to take the bull by the horn now and then to create a whole of government and a whole of citizens approach, to deal with this problem. It is not government alone, it's all of government, all of citizens approach, working collaboratively, to change the tides of what we are currently experiencing.
Yeah, thank you so much. He has raised a very valid point, from this your submission in what you refer to as the anatomy of violence in Nigeria. We talked about injustice, corruption, discrimination, increased gap between the rich and the poor, which is very, 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 very germane to this conversation. Member House of Reps, Honorable Bamidele Salami, a number of times National Assembly did invite some leaders of security agencies in Nigeria, perhaps to understand what they are doing with respect to the situation in the country. We want to hear from you. What are you hearing from such personnel? And in your opinion, as a politician, because of all that we've heard from Joseph Osogbo, tilts towards the fact that most of the issues in question that may have culminated into the situation we have in this country were caused by politicians. No doubt about that, because they are the people in governance. And no doubt about the fact that when it comes to the issue of increased gap between the rich and the poor, we still lay blames on politicians, who are the policymakers, who are the policy implementers. So I want you to have an overview of the situation in Nigeria and give us your own perception of what you think is happening, and of course, what is coming from the National Assembly with respect to addressing the issue.
Well, thank you very much. Let me, start off by agreeing very substantially with the point you have made and what the last speaker also said, to the fact that, where you have degeneration in any of the structures of society, the blame must principally go to those in government. We are government, so we must take the responsibility, because governance is about solving problems. So if there are problems, then the government should take the lead in solving the problem. And, as an institution, the House of Representatives, as a law-making organ of government, is not shying away from this fact that we are elected to solve problems. And it is so obvious that today in Nigeria, we have never had it so bad. We have never had things turn so low, and we have never had a situation where, you have incidents of insecurity and violence in virtually every part of the country. It used to be situated in the northeastern part of the country, the major challenges we had. But today, virtually everywhere, has one problem or the other. And if you have studied the pattern of our deliberations in the House in the last 2 years, the 9th Assembly, you discover that over 70% of what we talk about or do there is about security, which is an indication that we are not, oblivious of the fact that this is a major challenge to good governance, to the peace and prosperity of the country. The Nigerian Constitution says the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary responsibility of government. So even though the executive arm of government has the larger responsibility of implementing whatever comes as in form of lawmaking, resolutions, and what have you, we decided on our own that at every point in time, because we feel the pain, we are representing various constituencies. Each time you go home, people come up with their agitations, with their complaints. You can also feel that our people can no longer go about their normal. So because of that, most of what we had done in the last 2 years have been on security. Like you said also in your introductory remarks, we have had occasions to invite service chiefs, especially the outgone service chiefs, and the National Security Advisor to brief us on the state of insecurity in Nigeria and why it appears that government, looks so helpless in this situation. Now, some of the things that can be said, on air about the problems we have one, we have problems of inadequacy of manpower. We have problems of inadequacy of the equipment, those things that we really need to tackle insecurity. And because of that, the National Assembly decided that we should do more in terms of budgetary provision to the various security agencies. But again, it is not the equipment and the manpower that will do the job wholly. We have to have a commitment of all the stakeholders to a process of nipping this in the bud. And that is why a few days ago, on Tuesday in particular, when we had our first session after resuming from the break, we dedicated the whole day to discussing the state of insecurity in Nigeria and came up with a 12-point resolution as, the minimum requirement that government, both at the executive and legislative arm, have to work towards in ensuring that we combat it. Because if we don't combat this within the earliest possible time, God forbid, anything can happen. And the key point of it, which is also drawing from what the earlier speaker said, is that there is a need for engagement. There is a very, very urgent need for engagement. We have called on the president himself to initiate the process of engagement with critical stakeholders in Nigeria.
There are bottled up anger, bottled up emotions. There are issues that are, they may not have started now, but they are being exacerbated by so many other factors. The House of Representatives is convening a summit, a national security summit, of which a 45-member committee has been set up to engage with critical stakeholders in the security architecture, traditional rulers, community leaders, religious leaders, and we have set that process in motion. That committee was inaugurated by Mr. Speaker yesterday. But like I said, beyond that, we also believe that the president needs to declare a state of emergency on the security situation of the country. What does this mean? It means that everyone in leadership position agree that this becomes a priority above every other thing. Enough of all this talk about 2023 elections and what have you. We are so distracted with so many things in this country. If there is no livelihood, if there is no peace anywhere, nobody can talk about election. You can't talk about development. People who are even mobilized to go and construct roads are being kidnapped and killed everywhere. They are part of the country today that if you put 10 billion naira on a contract, nobody will take it because they are not secured. So we are asking that the president should declare a state of emergency so that we first of all agree that this is an issue that must be frontally tackled. Devote more resources, devote more attention, devote more activities, engagement with all critical stakeholders to find out what... Now, these people who are kidnapping and engaged in banditry and every other crime are not ghosts. They are known in various communities. How did we get here? The problem that we refused to solve 10, 15 years ago are rearing their heads together. What happens tomorrow? Now, I was just saying before we came in the studio, even in Abuja today, when you drive around, I drove around yesterday night, you could see young boys on the street, begging for money, all these almajiris and beggars. These are the problems of another 10 years. They are about 8, 9 years old today. In 10 years' time, they are 19 years old. They are not in school. What will they be doing in the next 10 years when they will be 19 years old if they don't go to school today? 13.5 million children out of school in Nigeria, the highest in the world. Now, these are all the problems that we must collectively address as leaders of this country, and as an institution, we are taking the lead in this regard. We have decided that we're going to hold this summit. It will be a 4-day summit that will be holding in the month of May, but the process has been set in motion. We have got the buy-in of the executive arm of government, and we are getting the buy-in of security experts and critical stakeholders in all these, firmament that we need to garner public opinion, to garner thought, strategies, and ideas on how to tackle this problem.
Very well said, Honorable Bamidele Salami. You've summarized the measures being taken by the National Assembly, in particular the House of Representatives. I was just wondering, before we get to the issue of the Security Summit, let's deal with the issue of the resolution calling for a state of emergency on security. Did the honorable members probably consider the wider implications of a state of emergency? Because in law and constitutionally, when you declare a state of emergency, this will require extraordinary measures.
Absolutely.
And in the 8th, was it the 8th or 7th now? Goodluck Jonathan was the 7th assembly. At some point, when there was a call again for the reimposition of a state of emergency on the Northeast to further help in prosecuting the war, the National Assembly shut it down. So what are we asking for now? That's through the House of Representatives, to say declare a state of emergency. It's not just a label, as you very well know.
Thank you.
So what is it that we'll be looking at? And with the citizens already traumatized, be willing, to comply and then to support such a state of emergency for a beneficial outcome?
Well, very good question. You see, when we talk about having a state of emergency on any issue, not necessarily security, just security now, because that is the burning point that we have as a country. We're talking about a situation that allows for extraordinary measures, extraordinary deployment of resources, of personnel and measures. Now, you gave an example of Goodluck Jonathan declaring the state of emergency in the northeastern part of the country, even though it did not totally solve the problem. Don't forget that by the time we were having our elections in 2015, we were able to hold elections in virtually every part of Nigeria, because then the government had the liberty to employ strategies out of the conventional to tackle the problem and restore peace and order in several parts of the northeastern part of the country. Now, before now, when we talk about state of emergency, there is an idea that, maybe it will involve removing governors, removing local government chairmen, and whatever. Now, it's been stated and it's been confirmed that those will be extra constitutional issues. Now, it will be unconstitutional that because you declare a state of emergency, you remove a governor, because the Nigerian Constitution has given specific means through which a governor can be removed from office, and that does not include in a declaration of a state of emergency, because even by the provision of our law, a governor can request the president to declare a state of emergency in his state if there is a great threat to law and order. So we are expecting a situation where it will bring this issue to the front burner of all our actions, policies, and programs, even if it is for the space of 6 months. And let me assure you that the people who are in Zamfara today, who cannot stay in their homes, the people in Benue who are in the IDPs and they are being attacked even in the IDPs, will not mind going the extra mile, to lose some comfort, so to say, if that will allow government to be able to come in, recruit more personnel, even if it is on an emergency basis, including seeking support from friendly countries of the world. There is nothing that stops us from seeking the support of mercenaries, for example, if that will help us in fighting the war. If we are able to nip this in the bud in 6 states of the Federation, I'm telling you, we will have achieved a great deal in helping, with those other states where we don't have, such a terrible program. So those are the things that we have in mind. We will call on the president to declare a state of emergency so that all attention, all effort, all programs and policies of government can be devoted to confronting this problem, because that is the primary function of government.
Honorable Kira, let me just mention this and then you pop it. Good explanation you have provided. But, that's why the other leg of it, you touched on it briefly, that say Zamfara, they wouldn't mind to lose some comfort, to enable them, have a more peaceable environment. But extraordinary measures, if you were to impose a state of emergency, Nigeria experienced a state of emergency, the entire country, from 1967 until 1978. The state of emergency was declared on account of the Civil War, which was first a police action in the present area of Cross River, and then went on, but the state of emergency lasted for 11 years. It's not just personal comfort. I mean, as lawyers will tell you, some of those so-called frustration cases in contract, requisition. The government will say, yes, we need your building to be able to do X, Y, Z. We need your property. We need your assets to be able to do X, Y, Z. So are these the kind of things that Nigerian citizens are willing, to, I don't know. That's what I say it depends on the extent. Kirian, you got the point I'm making.
Yes. And that's why I was going to ask Habila Joshak to come in here, because it's not just, it's easy to declare a state of emergency, but there are things that go with it, in terms of the, operation of state of emergency, because when you declare state of emergency, there must be action. All right. So we are talking about bandits. We are talking about Boko Haram. We are talking about kidnappers. These are individuals who are residing in forests and coming out to towns to carry out operations at will, and most times they are succeeding. All right. Because not less than 1,000 Nigerians may be found in different forests, being held by different abductors. So, sir, in the case of a state of emergency, what are we expecting? You are a retired Deputy Inspector General of Police, what is expected of the security operatives in any situation of, if it's declared that, okay, now the government has declared state of emergency on insecurity, what should be the first step to be taken to address the issue?
Yes, The Honorable have pointed out that, but I would love to make an adjustment to say that we should securitize. We should securitize security. That means bringing security to the front burner of all other activities, not waiting for administrative procedure before you take action to begin to tackle. When you securitize, then you take a political decision, whatever the head of that of that assignment says stand. And it also means that you just have to take this decision without looking at the administrative procedure. Otherwise, that particular incident, that particular thing that is happening will consume everyone. And so I think securitization theory here will replace the state of emergency. In that way, government will be able to take decision without going through the necessary procedure. What I know is that whether it is the military or the police or any other security operative, the complaint has been that there has been no sufficient logistics equipment. There are no funds. And to some extent, the manpower in all the services, whether the military or the police or the civil defense or those responsible for gathering intelligence, are not enough. And if they are, there are no sufficient funds. And that has been the problem, and that has been the reason. You could see that if we have sufficient funding, if there's sufficient funding for the services, and then you securitize security, this incident of kidnapping, incident of attack on security agencies, they've attacked the police, they've attacked the military for no just cause, and because the police and other security agency for internal security represent that organ that try to fulfill one of the obligation, constitutional obligation of government to say that security and welfare, that security in that state is for the police. And that's why the police are trained. They are not trained to kill. Police are trained to protect. And where there are incidents, police are not supposed to open fire on those who are harming anyone. They said there are procedures for police officers to begin to use their firearms. And one of it is that if the life of one particular individual in the country is in danger, and there's no other way that you can prevent that man from being killed, then you can fire. Or if you yourself have assessed the situation and discovered that the attack that is on you, there's no other way you can protect yourself, that's when you fire. And that's why police officer would not just see people armed and you just open fire on them. And that particular thing, or that particular directive, has made criminals to begin to open fire.
So what I was actually emergency is declared. Our security operatives going to move into Nigerian forest and begin to attack? Because, see, we are talking about individuals who are existing in forest, who have bases well established, who have supply